Alright, what's the time? 12:05. Shall we begin? I think we shall. Alright, let's see. We got 88 people. This is a nice group. This is a nice group. Let's get in there. Let's get beginning. Okay, so basically I don't have like the greatest idea of how this stream is going to work. And I used weird words to describe it. So on Twitter I called this the campaign discovery stream or something like that. And I did that because I didn't want to mislead people, because Colville specifically has done lots of streams where he's done world building with the chat, or he's done campaign prep with the chat. I didn't want to sort of trick people into thinking that it was going to be like that. What I did instead was confuse everybody. What I meant by campaign discovery is that basically my idea for how this stream, and if it goes well, these streams will work, is that I've got my campaign map that I use for my D&D game that many of you have expressed interest in. And basically I'm gonna sort of zoom around, show you some stuff, and anything that catches your eye, because some places are named, some places aren't, some places are named with names I hate and want to change. There are, landmarks, things like that. Anything that catches your eye, just, we'll bring it up. And if we come to a consensus on what sounds the most interesting, we can talk about that thing. And for some of those things, I know quite a lot. And for some of those things, I don't know anything. So if I know a bunch of stuff, we can talk about the stuff that I know about it, and we can, sort of get into the nitty-gritty of that. But if I don't know, then we can have back and forth and kind of maybe work out some stuff together. We've already got people calling out stuff they can see. Okay, come on. Hello. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, that was super weird for a solid second. What is Photoshop doing? Don't do me dirty like this. Where's the damn... Yeah, there we go. Alright, that's better. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so we've got people talking about the big grey spot, the Fey Acre. This as well, this is my copy of the map. So my players don't actually have this version of it. So I've got little color-coded things for different characters happening. I've got, this is the map with kind of all the information that I have, rather than the information that the players have. I did mention in a video at some point that I gave different maps to my different players. And this all happened because, if you look at what the map is... Oh no, what have I done? Sorry, give me a second. I gotta undo some stuff real quick. Where's my dang... There we go! I clicked on the wrong grabby thing and was just moving the Yeah, alright. Let's not mock me. Not yet. I'm hoping that none of my players are watching. I know that most of them are real busy right now because we have not been able to play. So hopefully they're not watching. If they are, they will be cursed. What was I going to say? I was going to say, so this map, if I zoom out to show you kind of the whole thing, this was the product of I wanted to, if we're talking about world building and how you go about world building for a campaign that you're going to run, for me, I was trying to go down the path of, you don't need to build the world, you just need to build the town. So I started with that, but I have at least one player who's a big geography nerd, and so she was really interested in getting a map, and as people started talking about it, and as she was excited about it, that excitement took hold, and as people were writing backgrounds, they were asking about the world, and I was sort of saying, I actually haven't designed most of the world, you just tell me what you think you know, and I'll try to make that fit. And so it ended up being that, I would ask questions. I got one player who gave me a super detailed background that basically filled out this whole area here. I had my elven ranger character she didn't give me super detailed stuff, but she grew up in a sort of crossing town in the north, and I asked what's the north like, and she said it was snowy, it wasn't particularly forested, all this stuff, and it all kind of built up over time based on what my players were telling me, and I ended up with this. And this still isn't a full map, this is a chunk of of a continent, and I don't know what the rest of it looks like or anything about it. Okay, so let me see. I'm like a big believer, I suppose what these streams will reveal, I'm a big believer in like patience and secrecy when it comes to world building. I like that idea of there will be things that you don't know, and you don't need to know them right now, you know? Sometimes you're not going to work something out until finally one day something clicks. Because I don't, you know, when you try to force stuff, it never quite feels right. I'm sure you know that feeling. So I've got lots of things in here that I'm like, it might be this, but that doesn't feel right yet. And it's usually only when I've been talking them out with someone that it sort of slowly fits into place. And I go, oh, because of this. Obviously, that's why. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so let's get a straw poll going. Straw poll. Great. All right, where's that chat gone? Sorry, in the video, I'm about to... I do not know what the continent is called. So if at any point someone suggests a continent name that strikes me as like, yeah, that's the thing, then yeah. All right, so we've got a bunch of people asking about Dael. Did I did not. I'm gonna real quick zoom around a little slower. Also, for anyone who asks me how I did my map, I drew it. I'm sorry that I drew it. You can see the results of me drawing it. I drew it on just like a notebook paper and scanned it in, and then went over it in Photoshop. So sorry. The one that I use in my videos that has the grid on it, that's basically what am I talking about? What's happening? I just got a transparent hex grid and laid it over top. So Dael, people are asking about Dael. What else? What else have we got? Twin Cities. This is, I just talked about good angles and bad angles, and now I'm sitting here leaning forward, slouching with my head right up to the camera. This is beautiful. Faker. We've talked about the Faker a bit in videos. Let me see. Lots of... It is pronounced Dael. It's actually, yeah, Glaren, you freaking nailed it. It's spelled Deathold, but I called it Dael before I looked at it and went, wait a minute. Lots of people like Dael. Maybe we don't even have to have a vote. Why are they rampant? Well, lots of people running rampant even, standing like this. Yeah, okay, there are some votes for the Rampant Badlands. Let's see, do we have anything else that is screaming out that lots of people are asking about? Let's see. No, we're back to people talking about where in the birth order they are. Okay. Orden's Keep, we've got to vote for Orden's Keep. Okay, well, I mean, I'll chuck in the Faker as well, just because a few people did mention it. So, great. Create poll. Great. What's the title? Oh, title is required. What are we talking about today? Ooh, there we go. Create the poll. Great, wonderful. Some of these as well, by the way, are going to, I'm just going to check that in there. Some of these are going to lead to, I don't think I did ever post up the stats of the burner prints. I've got them written in pencil in a book that I have here somewhere. I brought just a stack of different notebooks down because I'm never organized with my initial notes. So like I just know that there are a ton of notes in here somewhere. And I know there are a ton of notes in there. I never know what's where, but at least I've limited it to 4 books. I'm not gonna vote. I'm gonna just see the results. There we go. This is interesting. what, someone asked a question and then I got distracted by a different question. Why am I like this? I don't remember, but I'll keep talking about the burner prints for a second. I don't think I did post it anywhere because I've just got my sort of penciled in version. This is the moment I decided what he was going to have as his like cool signature weapon. I was like, what if it wasn't a weapon? What if it was like a thing? And I like I've got kind of a Roman aesthetic with my elves, so I liked that idea of like a wreath, like a sort of a Caesar. Yeah, anyway, here's my crummy little map, my notes on things that I do know. Yeah, so these are the stats on him at the moment. They're real bad, so I don't feel bad about you not super being able to see them. But yeah, hey. It's sweet that y'all are worried that my players will see things. Because they probably will, but it's like, have I played since I handed the map parts out to players? Yes, I handed the map parts out to players right after session 0, after they'd made their characters and we talked about background. And sort of based on what they told me, I sort of fogged out the map with a fog of war. Not a fog of war, but you know what I mean. And kind of there were a lot of fun things. So like, I mean, they're not options on the thing in particular today, but if we look at, for example, Tyrantor down here, the idea with that is that Tyrantor used to be a strong sort of port city. It was the major port city, but then something happened, and as a result, and I don't fully know what happened, although last night during a conversation with my brother, I think I'm starting to know what happened. But at some point, quite a while back, the city just ended up underwater. And why is everyone saying laurels? It's making me think of Laurel. Yummy. The city ended up underwater, and so now it's just kind of empty except for sort of river pirates. I love river pirates. I love the concept of river pirates, so I had to chuck them in there. Sort of think stilt-walkie people from Mad Max, or like the Wheelers from Return to Oz, but in a water city. So a lot of people now know it as Drowntown, and in particular, one of my players. So this is just an example of how these maps worked. One of my players is a rogue who spent some time with river pirates, and so she will have been warned about Drowntown. Don't go to Drowntown. Too dangerous. Don't go there. Whereas the ranger, who has spent a lot of her time, she hasn't traveled much, but she did a lot of study at Auden's Keep, and so she kind of knows about a lot of places, but she knows the technicalities and things like that. So she knows about this place called Tyrantor. The books will be outdated, so she won't necessarily know that anything's happened to it without having traveled, whereas, the rogue knows don't ever go to Drowntown, so there's that potential, and it will probably never come to anything, but I like the potential that, there could be a miscommunication there, where it's like, oh, well, there is a city nearby, we can go there, Tyrantor, it's like a hub, we can rest up, we can get potions or whatever, and then they get there and the rogue is like, are you kidding me? This is the place I was specifically told not to go. So that kind of a fun thing that will never happen, but it'd be cool if it did, wouldn't it? People spelling Diatold correctly. Phonetically. I don't know Earth Dawn, but if it has river pirates, that is my... They're fighting against quality for CR8. CR8 is, again, let's remember that challenge rating is a mess. It means nothing. That was just me, like, pegging a point where I was like, okay, this is the big bad that they'll be fighting, like, when they're level 5 or whatever. So how strong do I want my bad guy to be? And I was like, let's peg it at, like, a CR8. Alright, so people kind of calmed down on the voting. People like the Twin Cities and the Badlands more than they like Diatold. So let's see what we got on the Twin Cities. This could not even last very long, because guess what? The Twin Cities is one of those places I know nothing about. I apparently named them Droff and Tamron, although I wish my handwriting was clearer, because that looks a little bit like Droff and Tampon, which, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't love to visit the city of Tampon. My players did not compare their map fragments because I explicitly told them not to, and too many of them fear me. I haven't even touched my fizzy drink. What was the point? I wanted it, and now I'm just all hydrated. Ugh. All right. So, the Twin Cities. What do we know about the Twin Cities? Well, if we talk about Matt Colville's central tension, it's a great concept to work with if you're building a world. I don't know how significant the central tension is to mine, but it's been very useful in a lot of places. Specifically, I kind of was working with the idea of a central tension. Everyone is saying drop in tampon. Yep, that's it. Drop in tampon. The great city in the south. The central tension of my game is kind of the idea that, ooh, which Twin City came first? Remember that for me in a second, because we'll come back to that. The central tension is that, it's that thing of innovation versus tradition. And I think a significant thing for me, my thing when it comes to a central tension, is that I don't necessarily just want it to not be, I don't, so Matt Colville, where are my words? We talk about it as needing to be complicated. There have to be lots of different, facets to each side of this major dichotomy. But for me, I also want it to be that neither side is right. And I think that's, the kind of implication of the complicated facets. But, for the unfamiliar, can I explain what a central tension is? Yes. So, as Matt Colville would say, is that a game needs drama, which is conflict and resolution. And he sort of talks about the idea of a central tension, which is that there are all these different things that conflict can happen over, but you want kind of one real thing for everyone to be butting their heads over. I think the most significant thing that he said in those series of videos for me was he talked about the idea that we're kind of conditioned to think of the world as going to war over something, when really it's more like we're at peace because of blank, And why are we not in war? If we're in war, then what are we warring over? If we're at peace, what's keeping us from being at war? Because there's always something that means that there are two different sides. So the great example that he gives, I'll give a link to a video, I guess, because I don't think I've banned links in my chat. I don't know whether I have or not. I don't know how Twitch works, you guys. It's in the politics series, right? I'll just stick a link in there and you can check it out later, because it's super, super interesting. It's really, really good. Good stuff. I mean, you've all watched Matt Colville anyway. Half of you got to meet through him, but just in case you have not, I did have my peeps who watch me. Yeah, I know I should probably ban links, but there's only 100 of you. We're all here for D&D. There's a link. Click on it. You can watch it later. You'll find it very, very interesting. He talks about the Civil War and kind of what the central tension of the Civil War was, which, we can talk about it as slavery, but it's kind of, it is more complicated than that, because, it's states' rights versus nations' rights. It is about slavery. It's obviously about being able to keep slaves, but there is a lot tied up in that, and there is a lot of, smaller people who weren't involved in this big thing who get taken over by the... How can I put this? I think the American Civil War is the example we all go to, but if we think of other civil wars, have you ever noticed how history calls it a civil war if the major power won, but we call it a war of independence if the sort of uprising one. You know what I mean? So if we think of the Greek War of Independence, that was, the Greeks rising up against the Turkish who had, taken hold of Greece. And so because the Greeks won, we call it the War of Independence. Whereas if we talk about Firefly, that war was a civil war because the I can't remember the name of the bad guys in Firefly. I keep thinking the Federation, but that's Blake 7. Anyway, the big guys with the big ships and that one guy from Desperate Housewives, they won. Yeah, I don't know what the name of the continent is. I'm not stressing about the name of a continent yet because my players have only just like we're basically here right now. This is where the players are, so they're in a very small chunk of it. They'll ask at some point, and hopefully I'll have a name by then. But like at the moment, when you're in it, you don't think about like what continent am I on. So I'm not stressed about getting a name for it done. The Alliance, thank you, the Alliance. The Alliance one, so it's a civil war. Right, there you go. Yes. Now, I was describing the central tension, my central tension, tradition versus innovation. So that idea of, at what point is holding onto the past detrimental, at what point is striving for the future detrimental, that kind of thing runs through a lot of it. So the Twin Cities, basically, the further north you are, kind of the older things are, the more tied to tradition you are. The further south, I didn't want it to be exactly the same compass directions as in the real world, but here we are. The Twin Cities are part of this the symbolic fading into the south, where things become more new. People are, Are there specific states, countries, cultures in this world of yours? There are city groups, and there are kind of different cultural attitudes in different cities and things, fading as you go across, but it's not, I don't think I have any set lines or anything like that. Drown Town, cute. Hey Brazil, gangster of love. What's the distance between the cities? I think it's probably a little bit of an Ankh-Morpork-ish place. So far, the big central tension hasn't affected the microcosm of the campaign at all, because my players are still, they're in their murder hobo-ish phase. Which Twin City came first? Thank you for reminding me again, Drek Fletch. Good question. So I'm not sure. Which one do we think came first? I like to, when I'm thinking about this stuff, I kind of focus on less on questions, more on what I know or what feels right. So you might not know stuff, but it's like, the Twin Cities. What do I know about these? Well, I thought the idea was cool of like two cities that grew up near each other and kind of connected, that Ankh-Morpork thing, which there's a real city that is that. What is it? One of you will know. I think you're kind of right, Orange Bacon. I think that when you try too hard to be like, ooh, but the snow is in the east, then it's kind of like, ugh. But like, the shorthand is lost. I think there's a lot to be said for the shorthand of tropes, of kind of tradition. There we go. There it is. Yeah, I mean, we've had, my group is terrible because we're huge. It's like an 8-person group. So we actually don't have sessions that often, and when we do, we have long sessions. So it's kind of like, go slow, go slow, go fast, go fast. Minneapolis and St. Paul in the US? Yeah, I mean, I suppose so. I don't know much about Minneapolis, if I'm honest. Yeah, maybe. Actually, that's an interesting idea. Perhaps a branch of people left Droth to found Tamarin. Is it two different sets of people that incidentally built near one another and came together, or is it a group of people who maybe disagreed on something and split off? If they split off, then how is the city coming together again? Because I think it's at the stage where it's not quite an Ankh-Morpork, it's not one metropolis again yet, but it's it's on its way there. It has the markers of heading there. I've left it scrolled up again. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I mean, differences in beliefs I like. I don't especially. I'm not taken by the concept of including slavery in my game. Not because I'm inherently against it, although I do think it's like, we've got our world's evils, and we spend a lot of time, hopefully we spend a lot of time, like, pondering them and trying to avoid them again. So like sticking them in a D&D game, I'm like, nah, I'm more interested in like grand, like heroic things. Yeah. I don't know, I don't have anything to say on slavery, I think, is the issue there. I like there to be kind of a thing like that, a click that's like, ooh, here's my point, this is what I'm saying. Whereas when it comes to slavery, your point is, or should be, it's bad. So it's kind of something that we're all familiar with, we all agree on, so, you know, delving into it isn't my favorite thing. Yeah. If you were to build a character, a samurai dwarf, what would be the perfect location for you to come from? Probably off in the deserts, or below the deserts. Any specific flora and fauna nearby? That's interesting. Let's look at that for a minute. The Twin Cities do have harbors. You ask that, and there's one of those examples of like, what do we know? And it may not be obvious at first, but you'll find things that you do know. So I know that the Twin Cities do have harbors. One of my characters, my bard, spent some time on a ship traveling around from Seagate, and so she's kind of more familiar with the cities along the southern coastline, which don't get visited as much, including the Twin Cities. So that was a good question. So in terms of wildlife, flora and fauna, things like that, okay, so we know that it's hill country up here, hilly and grassy. We know that we've got a pretty big, crazy forest down here, and it's not devoid of water by any means, but kind of probably think northern Africa as we're heading down into here. And then we end up in sort of desert, salt flats, and things like that. So, split by a river, I like that idea, but I kind of like having the river as a major thing for the Jewel of the South, which you'll note does not have a name. So yeah, but it's got kind of a water thing going on with it. So what can we do that separates Drop and Tampon? We need to change those names. I mean, do we like those names? How do we feel about those names? Because I'm not married to them. Drop and Tamarin. I'm doing that thing. I'm doing that Matt Colville thing of just sitting and staring at chat silently. Yeah, economically, are people using sperm on me right now? Are people doing the sperm thing? The social, political, economic, religious, military? Interesting. People like Droth. Yeah, I agree. I think Tamarin sounds more like I'm making up a fantasy place. So I don't hate the sound of it, but I don't like the, I don't know, essence, feel. Droth and Ford. Yeah, I don't think. So these cities, Droth and question mark, they don't have necessarily like a ruling class. I think it's fairly merchant guildy probably. I think it is probably more of a one thing I should say if you're not trying to do this, I'm doing this, I'm demanding this. If I'm trying to separate it from the Jewel of the South that still doesn't have a name, oh my gosh, what is the name of Jester's mother? Because I made this map like years ago. What is her name? What is Jester's mother's name? I'm really behind, don't spoil anything, but also Critical Role. The Jewel of the Sea? Is she the Ruby of the Sea? I'm sorry. Okay. That just freaked me out for a minute. Right. If I'm separating it from the Jewel of the South, which doesn't have a name, I know that there's a university, a big kind of sprawling university place. It's a little bit chaotic. It's the innovation half of the tradition and innovation. Spoiler alert, Deatold, Aurori's Respite, has a university, but it's a very traditional old university that's very sort of selective and very sort of sheltered and keeps to itself and doesn't like sharing stuff. It's the traditional symbol. I got to work on it to make it a little more faceted. But in the Jewel of the South, there's a big, different university that's a little bit more welcoming and like open and whatever, but also a little bit more lax in terms of like keeping control of stuff. What is her mother's name? Good, nice reference. I love it. Yeah. So, I do like the idea of the Twin Cities being more merchanty. That's something that's definitely interesting. What shall we do with that? If we have merchants, then this idea that you've all been kind of mentioning of having an economic disparity or a disparity in what is being produced could be an interesting way to divide them up. Do we think that these are cities that disagree or that agree? Are they coming together now, or will they come together once they've come to a resolution? Because if they are building together, there's got to be something that is drawing them together. Maybe they disagree on stuff, but they think that they can get a lot out of each other. They can squeeze a lot of, like, they can manipulate each other into winning stuff. What do you disagree with? What do you disagree with, Kotick? You think they began building together recently? I agree with that. Disagree. Conflict is better. Who are we disagreeing with? A common enemy. Interesting. Maybe in the sea. Yeah, I mean, the world isn't particularly at war right now. Oh, that's interesting. They're coming together, but there's a lot of bad blood. So is it possible, if we're talking about merchant guilds, are they guilds? Yes, they're guilds. Sorry, I had to think about that because I don't have a thieves guild, but then I remembered that actually, like, lawful people do form guilds. So if we're talking about guilds, maybe we can talk about in terms of, like, major families who kind of run the economic thing, or at least ran it. Maybe there's a new leadership thing. Maybe they've just entered some kind of a democratic leadership thing. Bear with me, we're not, like, settling on any of this. But if they've just entered some kind of a new leadership system and whoever's in charge is, like, making changes that's bringing the cities together, and maybe these mercantile groups feel like that's actually going to harm them. Like, maybe it's going to bring in competitors for their business, things like that. So you can have kind of the double layer. The city is coming together from the two cities, but also there are people trying to work against it, maybe. The Druff family and the Tamrin family, descendants of Tyrantor. I don't think so, but it's an interesting idea. I think it's one of those things where I like the idea, but I like it for your game, not for my game. You should do that. That's cool. Yes, competition of two guilds that are now coming together in the face of a larger southern monopoly that threatens their livelihood. Yeah, maybe. Maybe one revolted from the other, couldn't take over the entire thing. Interesting. Beta is an interesting name, but it doesn't feel sandy enough, if you know what I mean. Beta is like a cool snowy name. I would maybe use it for a snowy place, or a tundra. But even though this isn't sandy, like, these cities are not sandy, but it's getting down into the dry weather area. So I kind of think of it as being influenced by that group. Somehow I feel like the people who founded these cities came from the east, came through the desert and got to the coast rather than coming from the top down. Interesting. Druff is further up the coast, so maybe they got the lion's share of the trade. That's true, especially if we're talking about Tyrantor used to be a big port city. It's possible that people would come through there. Perhaps the guilds gave newer blood that... You're all so excited, you're typing so many things. Perhaps the guilds gave newer blood that think a lack of conflict would be better. Perhaps the guilds have newer blood that think a lack of conflict would be better. However, the citizens aren't a fan. What do you want the second name to be? I have no idea. That's why I'm crowdsourcing it. I'm kind of bad at names. Like, sometimes things really fit, and sometimes things just don't. Scathe. I'm probably not going to pick a name during this either. You're all going to give me great suggestions, and then one day I'll be sitting down and I'll rewatch this video and I'll look through the chat during that. Tamrian? Better. It still feels a little bit like, how am I going to describe it? Like shooting for Prince Caspian and missing. Like C.S. Lewis-y names that feel really cool and right. Like, they're not the super flowery stuff that Tolkien did, but they've got, like, a fantasy element while still feeling grounded. And I feel like C.S. Lewis was pretty great at that. And I try to do that and suck at it, so I'm wary of names that feel like that. In a book I read, it was 3 major families and 5 to 7 minor families that controlled a whole country city. Something like that can give a lot of intrigue and personalities. Ooh, you know what? Oh, what if there are 2 major mercantile families, right? And we get that separation, like very sort of small city town places built up around these families with their trades and their conflict between each other. But there were smaller groups, smaller families, smaller trades that have since the whole group came together, and those groups have decided it would be better for them if the whole thing becomes like one conglomerated, everyone's together thing. And so it's like 5 little groups versus 2 warring major groups, and it's like, do the major groups continue to fight against each other, or do they combine forces because that's the only way to take down the smaller groups? What do we think of that? Derek, I don't mind. Droff and Derek. Ooh, Droff and Derek. Kind of like that. A cartel? Maybe. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. That idea of, instead of them fighting with each other directly, they're still not working together, but they're working against each other to try and garner favor. Oh, Colville tweeted my stream. Oh no, Colville tweeted my stream. We're about to get really busy, and now I have to actually be good at stuff. Oh no. Oh, thank you, but also why? Okay, this is fine. Great. Name Colville. Okay, so then, maybe as well, I keep using the term guild, but rather than being separate guilds, I kind of like the idea that they were just families that set up and kind of were vying for power, and over time, a guild eventually started up that contains all of the groups, so maybe like 7 all up, and they're all like under this one guild banner, and whoever's the new guild leader is trying to create this change, and it's just the 2 big families within the guild who are like, oh no! Kind of like when you see episodes of crime procedurals where inevitably there's always like one episode where they're on the docks and there's like someone is the new, what's the word, when someone strikes, they're part of what's the other word for guild that we use now? It's like someone, no. Union, thank you. You're all wonderful. Union. It's like a union rep that comes in, and either the union rep is corrupt, or the union rep is like trying to do good, but the corrupt higher ups doing bad stuff. You know that episode. That always happens. Yeah, there could be a mafia. How do we feel about a mafia? I mean, that seems like a silly question. I feel like everyone's always in favor of a mafia in fiction. How do I feel about a mafia? Let's work out what the trade is first. It's probably something to do with you're half and half on mafia? Yeah, that's me too. There is always a black market, but the black market is a signature feature of a different city. Up here, Grenalden, which I've talked about before. I don't know if I've talked about the fact that because Grenalden is so close to the Fayacre, which is kind of, in my setting, it's the planes don't work the same way. It's not like, boom, I, like, transport myself through magic to another plane. It's more like you hear of in Irish fairy stories. I kind of describe it, I'm trying to find ways to describe these things. For the Fayacre, I like to describe it as you can see the ocean over the trees. You can see into the distance from the peak of this place. And you can see the ocean, you can see the horizon. But you see it out of the peripheral of your vision, and if you try to look up, you just keep seeing trees. It just keeps going. And that's kind of this temporal fold almost. It's just that there is another plane there. So it's kind of less boom, it's more incidental. So in Grenalden, I have a specific thing where where if the party go through the main market that's there, the bazaar, then I roll a d20, and if I hit a natural 20, they've accidentally slipped into this half dimension that exists there where the black market exists, and that's where magic is traded. So that's where it stops working with game mechanics and starts working in terms of like you have to pay in a child's laughter, that kind of a thing. But you get very powerful things, but you have to participate in this very nebulous deep magic. I talk about the deep magic a lot. So yes, there's probably not like it won't be a significant thing in the Twin Cities to have a black market, just because I've got that elsewhere. Feel free to steal ideas. That's the other thing that this stream is for. We just talk for a while, and anything I say that you think is cool, just take it. Salt and iron for the resources. Oh, I like salt. That's interesting, especially if they came from the east, from the salt flats. That's interesting, but then we are at the ocean, so would salt actually be a tricky thing? They could bring seasoning. They could have seasoning. Where are the Lakers right now? The Lakers? The basketball team? I don't know. I only follow baseball. Cool. Coastal smuggling is always a valid business. I think that's true. I think there's probably a separate group. I think these families do their business legally and then do their business underhanded. I think they probably keep them a little bit separate. Yeah, but here's the thing. How could you get rich on salt when you're in a place where it should be so easy to harvest? That's my question on salt. I like the salt, but I feel like everyone could get salt. So I feel like all of the families, not just one of the big families. So what could they have a lock on? Oh, sorry, this is just a cool story from Ampersand. My grandmother on my mother's side was a part of a pirate gang who ruled the River Kwai in Thailand. And during World War II, she was trading intel for both the Japanese and the Allies side. So maybe something like that is an NPC on this river, trading intel and goods between the city's mafias. That's interesting. I don't think it has a place here, but it's a cool idea. I mean, it has a place somewhere, just not here specifically. This is like such a tiny little scrap of map to be looking at. Oh, players! Where are the players? They're halfway here. They're like here. Not even quite. They're like here. Fingers crossed they don't run into a manticore. Ha ha ha. They better not be watching, actually. Whoops. That's the first time I've felt genuine fear. All of you have been like, what if your players watch? And I'm like, they know not to. That was the moment that I was like, oh no, I've said too much. Have guards to guard the shores. Yeah. Gunpowder ingredients. Do I want to bring guns into this? If I bring guns into this, my players will get guns. They just will. Fey salt. I don't know. I feel like I like the Fey to be tied up in words, to be tied up in language. I don't like them to be pulled down too hard. I like iron as a weakness for Fae just because it's a very sort of anti-word thing, you know, to have like their weaknesses being named, but also being pinned down with something like iron as like a very human thing. Extracting salt from seawater takes a lot of time and space to dry out. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just off the salt thing. I feel like the salt is a cool idea, but not in this specific location. Like maybe the family has another end that trades salt elsewhere, but here it feels tricky because there is a lot of space. And if they all set up here trading, it's like what did they start trading that enabled them to set up? I think trade, by the way, is heading south at this point because if they're coming into, so if the ships are coming into Tir-Antor from the other from like the capital and the other major cities in the northern half, right? Then they would be coming around here, stopping off in Tir-Antor back in the day. Who knows if Tir-Antor was actually a thing when these cities were founded, though? That's a good point. But then coming down the coast through the Twin Cities. The Twin Cities, it's So what are we talking about? Colville giving a link. The name Dael came running. We're talking about, so for people who came in, because apparently Colville shared the link, this is a good point, I should say. What we're doing is, it's a mess, but what we're attempting is, we've looked at the map I have, and basically what we're doing is, I know lots of stuff about some places, a little stuff about some places, and nothing about other places. And I asked chat what we were interested in looking at today after sort of browsing the map for a little while, and they picked the Twin Cities, Druff, and no longer Tamarin, thinking Deerick at the moment, but we're not sold on Tamarin, so we're kind of also discussing what we could call it. And we're trying to work out stuff about this city, because it turns out this is one of the places I don't know much about. What I do know is that it's two different cities that are slowly coming together, Ankh-Morpork style, and we're trying to work out stuff about that. What was the other thing that I worked out? Chat will remember that I was like, I do know this thing. I don't remember what it was. That it's like a port stop, I think that was what it is. Sulfur. Interesting. How's the magic density in my world? High magic, low rare. The magic is pervasive. That's what it is. Is this map the size of Africa or more New Zealand scale? Think more Africa. I mean, it's not like all of Africa, but it's a solid chunk of Africa. Magic ley line. Interesting. Whaling, maybe. Here's the other thing. We gotta remember, I didn't show this super close up earlier on when we were sort of whizzing around. There is a big reef here, the grip grind. So ships kind of get limited in what they can do around here. So whaling is probably not such a simple thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if it's something that wouldn't have a huge impact in terms of, like, affecting the world, like gunpowder. Gunpowder's very cool, but it feels like a big thing. Whereas something like wine, olives, you know, that is very cool. Chocobodundy. Chocobodundy! I got there in the end. Oh, man. I tried. Oh, hey, Matt. Matt's here. Hey, hi. Cool. Yeah, the grip grind. I know that Matt isn't a fan of names that are just like two things shoved together, but that feels like a very human thing. It's also known as the Blustrade, because a couple places here just have two different names. It's like the Ruistraff is the mountain range, but most humans call it the rope range. That kind of a thing. I don't know, I'm kind of liking wine. I like the idea they're in this tropical climate because they're on the way down to drier weather. So if we get that kind of a pseudo-Mediterranean thing going on. Did the Twin Cities exist in the heyday of Drowntown, or did they grow in response to the drowning? I don't think they grew in response to the drowning, but I am wondering if they were founded after Tyrantor fell, because I wasn't thinking about this until just before, but I do think that Tyrantor probably fell quite a long time ago. Not like ancient times or anything, but like it has to be long enough ago that you know, yeah, I don't know. I'll work it out at some point. Constantinople, Istanbul, yeah. Were the Twin Cities founded by twins? Did they go through a period of conflict? I don't think they were founded by twins. I think they were more like petty neighbors, if that makes sense, you know, keeping up with the Joneses kind of a thing. What's the major race? Most of my cities are dominated by humans. I got a dwarven area, because you gotta. And I got an elven area, because you gotta. And I've got gnomes. Matt's here, and now I suddenly regret talking about gnomes. No, gnomes do have an area, but they don't have a city. They kind of just have like a place where they semi-regularly show up in the Feyacre, or on the edge of the Feyacre, kind of like Romani-esque, I guess. Yeah, real world names really are so simple compared to. Sorry, I've got my sister miming things through the door at me. They are very simple compared to fantasy names a lot of the time. But there are weird things, because it's like, yeah, Grand Canyon, Black Sea are great, but then you do get ones, like we can't forget that Caspian you know, the Caspian Sea. What does that come from? Where does that? So we have some that are super simple, some that are super, super weird and out of nowhere. And then you've got lots of places that are just named for stuff that's there. So like Kingsmill, as a surname, comes from a place called Kingsmill, which was so named because that's where the King's Mill was. So, you know, it's just like throwing stuff at the wall until you see what feels right. Gnomes are better than halflings? How dare you? I like them both equally. The halflings live up here. But they kind of share with humans. What's the architecture like? I don't know. I hadn't considered. What do we think the architecture is like? What do people want to see? Because we've got kind of a little more Egyptian-ish down here with the unnamed Jewel of the South. We've got kind of French Gothic over here at Cragcroft. We've got kind of Greek-ish, like ancient and then built up into more modern stuff at Bryn Olden, which is weird because it's a hella Welsh-inspired name. Yeah, see, so Caspian Sea was named after the people, but it's still like, we get to the point where it's like, oh, things are so simple, but like the further you go, the less defined things become, and eventually we just end up saying, yeah, but all words are just mishmashes of sounds that our face holes can make, which is, you know, not super useful. Dublin, Blackpool. Interesting. I feel like I've learnt things. Yeah, maybe. Ransacked, maybe. See, I just don't know that many architectures. Modern Greek, Crete or Minoan. Yeah, I mean, I do definitely get the feeling that it's a young enough city that it wouldn't have. So like Bryn Olden has like a ruin at the top that kind of gives you a legacy of what the architecture developed from. Whereas this, it's new enough that it's kind of just leaping into stuff. Spanish architecture wouldn't be a bad idea. I don't mind that idea at all, actually. Get a nice like Santa Barbara vibe going. Yeah, okay. Let's hesitantly say Spanish style architecture. And we're not like married to it. We haven't proposed, but I like it. Cool. I like the idea of it as Istanbul-esque as well, but here's my problem is that I love the visual style of Istanbul as a city, so I often try to shove it into everything. So where I can, I try to resist, just so that when I use it, I can make a proper impact, you know? Are there suburbs touching, or are there days of travel in the wild between them? There are not days of travel in the wild between them. I would say it's probably connected by like farms and stuff, so you know when you get a city, and you, like there are suburbs that some people are like, oh, look, I'm going to use an Australian example because I have no real option, but here we go. So Sydney, right? And then you've got Campbelltown, and some people will be like, Campbelltown is part of Sydney. Me growing up in the country, I was like, yeah, Campbelltown is part of Sydney. But some people are like, no, it is not, because you've got these stretches of like agricultural land or whatever. I mean, there aren't really for Sydney, but that's the example I'm going with. But you've got these like, you know, suburbs and towns that end up sort of melting in and out of each other without ever fully hitting, you know, the wilds. That feels like a dumb word to use in relation to just like the current global climate. Yeah, Spanish next to the Egyptian with like a desert vibe. And it's not a super deserty vibe, but it's like, it's just that kind of heading towards the savannah almost kind of. Maybe there's a road that's an almost highway road between them. I think there is. I think you're right. I'm drinking water, you guys. Sorry, you don't know how exciting this is. I need to hydrate more. I'm terrible. What did I just do? I just disappeared everything. Here's something to think about as well. It's pretty close to this this forest, which is pretty huge. And I know it looks not that big, but imagine that this is really big. Each of these is like several days travel. What would be the social hub? You guys are sperming me. I shouldn't. I'm a woman on Twitch. I shouldn't use that phrase without context. Social, political, economic, religious, military. It's just like a mouthful. Persian. Yeah, you could say that. I'd allow it. Social hub. What is the social hub? I think the social hub would... Is it weird to say that the social hub would be like town meetings? Like, I know that's political, but like, if you just scale up the idea of like, I don't know, Gilmore Girls, Stars Hollow town meetings, that's like a social event. Everyone gets together and they all talk about this stuff. Oh, no, Gildane, no! Oh, Clarence, why did I let this happen? So, perms, I laughed at all the people in my comment section who were like, we should rearrange the sperm acronym. And I was like, ha ha ha, it's just a word. And now here we are. And I'm accidentally playing, what was that old game called? Innuendo Bingo? That YouTube game from days of yore. Ah, okay, you know what? We gotta move on. Doing stuff for the city and meeting to talk about them are just as important as a party type thing. Yeah, and it's that idea of like, you know, maybe people in these cities feel like a civic duty, like that's... Yeah, and I mean, if we bring wine into it, maybe they are a wine hub. And I think the two major families should probably trade in the same thing or very similar things, because otherwise where's the conflict, you know? Maybe they have different methods of doing it. Maybe one of them has a better sort of production setup. Like if they're making wines, right? Maybe one family grows better grapes. They have like they're really great at the agricultural half, but then use old school methods for actually making the wine. Whereas maybe this other group have, you know, they've got like weakling grapes that are fine. They're doing fine. They're just barely good enough at growing the grapes. But when it comes to the production half of it and making the most out of that process, they nail it. So maybe that's the kind of thing that we're looking at there. Is there a tourist economy at all, or do they exist to entertain traders? I don't think tourists are super interested. I think that maybe... Ooh, here's an idea. Ooh, what if part of the reason that the cities are being brought together is because it provides more of a tourist attraction, because it's like, these are two cities that eventually became one city. Isn't that interesting? And so it's like this move to try and bring outside trade, since the trade routes don't go through to Tirantor so much. Why not different kinds of alcohol? Why not beer? That's true. What about ranching? There's kind of a farm city over here. See, here we go. This is just another example. There's lots of stuff that I know that you don't know, and I keep forgetting to tell you. This place, which is not called Glistfen, because I hate that name, I just haven't replaced it yet, is kind of the agricultural heartland. I'm good at words. I have a degree in it. Yes. So, yeah, I'm hesitant to let it get too farmy. See, here's the problem, is that we're trying to... I keep being like, you can't do that because of this place, that's their thing, which is tricky when the Twin Cities aren't a major city, they're just a sort of interesting location. Is there a wall or a watchtower between the cities as like a reminder from more martial times? I think there might be a watchtower in both cities, as if there was... I mean, it's so silly. It's not big. It's not like a huge thing. So just imagine like a comically small version of like the no man's land between the Koreas. So like these are just families that built up towns around them, you know. And I mean, there were families in town, so there were other families. We're not getting inbred here, but you know, it's like these major groups that are built up around. I don't think Glistfen. We can't call it Glistfen, you guys. I hate that name. We need a different name. I named it that because I hesitantly named the forest Den Glistfen, and then I hated that. I prefer Wildwood. I think all of this is Wildwood, and this place is named something else. Yeah, I think they're a port of convenience. I think that their main income is alcoholic, because that's always interesting. I don't know. Let's go on a mythology tangent just for a second. There's like a cool thing in storytelling where you can track the progress of alcohol. So basically, Dionysus is quite a late addition to Greek mythology. He's a late addition to the pantheon. And he came with the invention of wine. He came with the sort of creation of wine started in the east and spread west as it went, and kind of Dionysus moves west with it. And then it also gets tied in with like a sort of Christ figure story that kind of carries across lots of different cultures and different mythologies. But yeah, so the movement of wine as it is sort of brought to different parts of the world is very interesting to me. I think it carries a lot of sort of technological innovation with it. And also a lot of dumb stuff, like it's got that idea of the chaos, the wild as well, because people didn't know what the hell was happening. They were just super drunk all of a sudden. What if they export spices? I think they probably do. I appreciate you all using the names of like Denglistfen and stuff, but I really hate the name. Some casino. Ooh, you know what, Luce 1251. Casinos are nice. Oh, the Wolfgang video just went just went live. That's nice. I mean, you're all here instead, but hey, it's up somewhere. Because it is the full moon tomorrow. Hooray. Where did wine come from in my world? I think because I've used so much of the same geographical structure of Europe, it is a European analog in a lot of ways. I think it came from the east. I think it came from the east and moved west. Probably the mid-east. I don't remember where. India? Was it India? That feels wrong. That feels incorrect. Because like the further east you go, the more you get to like rice wines and stuff. So I'm trying to think of where like grape wine began, and I know the information is somewhere in my head, but I cannot remember it right now. But I think it would come from further east. Probably south a little bit as well. Should we create any prominent NPCs tonight? If you would like to. Would people like to make NPCs for this city while we're talking through stuff? Wasn't it in the sub-Saharan river valleys? Very possibly. Here's the thing when you read a lot of mythological texts and stuff, is that you get a lot of place names and a lot of area that kind of is not exactly what you think now. It's like that thing about how I didn't realize that the Hellespont wasn't still called the Hellespont in the modern world. There are things like East Derbyshire for Denglistfen. That's, yep. So there's things like when Greek mythology refers to Asia, it's not talking about what we're talking about as Asia. It's kind of more talking about, yeah, I mean, it's always Turkey. Everything. Turkey is the middle of everywhere. Kind of, yeah, it's a nearer sort of area than what we call Asia. No, it is not called the Hellespont anymore. It's called something else, and I don't remember what. I should, but... The other thing is that so much of Greek mythology takes place in Africa, but people don't tend to realize, like a huge amount of people who didn't realize that, like, Heracles is black, like canonically black. There are stories that explain why he is black, which is, I mean, a little weird when it's like he's just black, but but they give stories for him being black, and he grew up in Thebes, which is, you know, in northern Africa, and things like that. So it's like, is this weird thing where space is described in a lot of similar language, but is describing different things to what we think about. How did I get off onto this tangent? The Dardanelles! Hey! We've got a couple of yeses to NPCs. Yeah, Vesuvius is right. That I should remember your real name. We met, and I should remember your real name, and it's just not coming to me right at this second. It's a really cool name. What is your name? But I think you're right that it could happen organically if we get into the nitty gritty of somewhere. But I mean, if people have ideas for NPCs, I'm not gonna shoot them down. So Droff and Derek, real quick. I'm just gonna don't mind me while I screw up the screen just for a tick. I didn't mean to do that. Why is this happening to me? I just want to add a layer so I can really messily. Here we are again. Yeah, great. Nice. Bring this down. I'm just gonna Why is the hardness at 0? What the heck was the last thing I was doing on this laptop? Alright. I'm just gonna write Derek really badly so we remember. Again, if something better like comes along, we'll go with it. But I like Droff and Derek. Something about that feels kind of cool. Yeah, I know I've met you, Elliot. Come on. I don't get doubting that I remember your name. Ridiculous. Let's not get into a game of who I've met and who I've not met and whose name I know and who I don't. Because for starters, all y'all have slightly different usernames and icons across different platforms. So it's hard, yo! Okay, alright. What am I doing? How am I making this right? Okay, I'm gonna zoom this back out just for a second. Try to fix it. Try to fix it! Okay, cool. Great. We're basically right. Okay, that works. I'm happy with that. Droff and Derek, D&D. That's exactly it. Are there modern equivalents of countries, or is it just a bunch of city-states? It's kind of a bunch of city-states. Nothing super defined. It's kind of like, I mean, I don't shudder to, but like, I'm hesitant to use Lord of the Rings as an example of what I'm talking about because, you know, just be wary of ever trying to copy Lord of the Rings because none of us are Tolkien. We are not obsessive enough, nor do we have the time, no matter how much we think we may be. But you know how you just kind of enter an area and you're like, ah yes, this is like the Rohirrim zone now. That's the technical name too. That kind of a thing where it's like, this is just sort of known territory that is monitored by this group of people. That's kind of what we're dealing with. What was the one? Romeo and Juliet in the Twin Cities? Oh, you know what? It's a cliche and a half, but I kind of love it. We can chuck a Romeo and a Juliet in there. And I was thinking, yeah, sort of Capulets and Montagues is a nice template for rival clans. I'm not going to use the word clan because that makes it too, not quite, yeah. But, yes. Ooh, I'm dropping things. I keep moving around because I'm in such a weird spot. Romeo and Romeo, not a bad idea. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm on the wine train. It might change to something slightly not wine, but I'm on the wine train, and I think the other families, you know how we talked about the idea, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. A rosé by any other name would smell as sweet. Because it's wine. Okay, I'm sorry, I just had to stop because I thought I was really funny. No, what was I saying? So we talked about the two major families who are kind of rivals in business, and so they have their rival towns, like when you set up a Video Easy right next to a, like a Civic Video. Why did I use video stores as an example? Alright. A Pizza Hut next to a Domino's. But then we've got these other families that also trade there but are less kind of caught up and less rich as a result of it. But maybe those other families sell the spice. And maybe that's, like, maybe the trade is, like, moving in a spicy direction. And so maybe things are, like, power is shifting just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I like this. But I like the idea of one guild, and it's all happening within the one guild. So they're bound by guild rules. You know, they have to kind of still play within those boundaries while trying to get one up on each other. Okay, we got Romeo and Juliet gnomes. Okay. Why is this happening? It's always the gnomes. The gnomes. I mean, I love a good gnome. My first character was a gnome. His name was Job. He was a magician rogue. I say magician rogue because he was a rogue, but he found a wizard's old spell book, so he could do some like basic tricks, and he used them to perform street magic and to run away when he got caught stealing things. Okay, we're getting off on a gnome tangent. Oh no. I never thought Matt was right about the gnomes. Oh gee, okay. Alright. Come on now, ladies. Yes? What's cooler than being cool? FYI for the channel. What? Huh? A man died in a cave explosion which created holes in the walls, allowed the sun to reach the fig seeds that he'd just eaten to grow into a full underground tree. What? Alright. I mean, hey, good for the earth, I guess. Alright, well, okay, so we've got the two families. Who's the head of family number one? Let's have a matriarch. I love a good matriarch. Who should she be? My brain immediately goes to, what's her name? The woman that I hate from Skyrim. I stole her horse. Maven Blackbriar. My head goes there, but we don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? So who would it be? Could have someone who likes to like believe in their own wisdom. That could be fun. That could be fun to play. Mama Cinco, Mavis, Craigie. She's old and cranky and doesn't take your shit. That's nice. Clarice could be fun. We can't have a matriarch and a patriarch, but I just mean in terms of like who calls the shots in each of the families, because I suppose that's true. You can have a pair, I was about to say, because there's always one who's calling the shots, and that's just not true. That's a straight up lie. I was about to lie to you all. It's because I'm a liar. Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't want it to be too, you know how often when you're talking about like major NPCs, you kind of get stuck thinking about like, what class are they? And you think in terms of proper D&D classes. I actually feel like for these ones, I want them to be merchants, you know? Like, I don't want it to be like a merchant who is also a rogue or who is also a necromancer, you know? I just want them to be merchants, because if we're going to look at them as like these kind of, I mean, not evil, because it's economics and that feels like a strong word for what's going on, but like kind of cutthroat mercantile people, That idea of like just the wickedness and the good that can come out of the mundane. You know, like you can still be powerful and effective, even in just your economic practices, your business practices. Leticia Villalobos, Empress Livia. She's not an empress. Rivaling siblings. I feel like that makes the cities too young. Unless one jumped ship. What if one jumped ship and went to work for the other business? And they wouldn't be the top of the business, but they'd be like there. It'd be like, why am I bringing up baseball again? Just, you know, like when Pablo Sandoval left the Giants and went to the Red Sox, and then the Red Sox didn't like really use him. He just kind of sat in the outfield, not winning for the Giants. Yeah. Someone who's only figuratively cutthroat. Yes. Yes, I like that. That's a good description. Ampersand twist. Theodora's nice. Okay, well, here's a question. Too soon, Dael. It's been how many years? Here's my question. Is she human? Because I like my humans. If she's human, I have a kind of I want to say a tradition, but it's an accidental tradition. I kind of name most of my human NPCs and characters with half Roman, half Victorian sounding names. So I have like Hadrian Shea, or I have, did I mention this in a video? I might have. Half orc. Interesting. Put a pin in that. Serverland! Nice reference. Or my current fighter character is named Eloise Idis. I have like Abigail, what was her surname? Something Roman. Abigail Brutus, something like that. Yeah, so it's kind of a tradition if she's human, but I don't know if she is human. Is she human? We've got a lot of half-orc suggestions, which I think could be cool. That idea of a half-orc who's very into business and the sort of cerebral thing. Someone suggests drow. Yeah, I haven't worked out like a place for drow in my setting yet. Because the thing with the elves, I mean, man, one day we'll talk about it, because this has been fun. I think we will do this again. And a lot of you did ask about the Feyacre, so if we do ever end up talking about the Feyacre, I'll tell you what's going on with the elves, yeah. It's a thing. Everybody has a price. If these are merchant families, then they'd definitely have bought muscle, because they can. That's probably true. Off topic, but is there a good place to start if one wanted to make a campaign for the first time? Start with a town. Start with the town and start with the characters. That's the best advice I have. I like to make my players tell me anything they know about their characters, because often they know things, even if they don't have the details. So like, for example, my ranger character knew that she grew up somewhere kind of snowy. And so I was like, okay, great, well, we'll build from there, and kind of just getting the answers to things that they feel are right, and then building from there, and building your world out, because that's how I ended up with this dang place. Half-elf could be cool. Half-elf could be very cool. I kind of like the half-orc for her. I don't know what it is, and I'm hoping it's not just a need to be different, although, again, I often say if you're choosing a character that you want to play, just play what you want to play, you know? But in terms of the world, what fits? I mean, there's still going to be a lot of humans around. I like the half-orc thing. I kind of like the idea that, like, the family hasn't been... You know, we get that whole thing, sort of, Drofendirik. I guess it does sound a little bit half-orcy. Eladrin. Excuse me, please back. Seagate used to be Zeren Arg, which is a half-orcish place. And the only other known orc entities in the world so far, I think, are the Warsong clan. My cleric is a half-orc. and they kind of hang out, or they used to hang out near, what is this place called? Ruin, at some point. Yeah, Derek and Droff, they don't sound un-half-orky. I kind of like the idea that they came from a place further east beyond the Salt Flats where it's not like a weird thing to be a half-orc. It's like, yeah. Because when it comes to sort of villain beings, I don't love having that sort of dumb, warlike tribe thing. Like, they can form tribes, but I don't like, you know, like when you get ogres and it's like, ogres are dumb. I like races in my game to be more complex than that. So, one day we might talk about the goblins. Oh, we might talk about the goblins. But it's like I like them to be either intelligent or beasts. I like them to either have a range of personalities and intelligences and things like any race does, or they are an animal. Essentially, I don't like it to be like, these are dumb and angry, blah blah blahs. So having the orcs be kind of like, yeah. So I like that idea of definitely having this kind of figure, this half-orc figure who, she kind of embodies that in a little way. It would be a cool teaching moment, I guess, to explain what the wider half-orc thing in my setting is. Dothraki half-orcs are cool. Well, ridiculous night. My goblins are pretty... Yeah. They're frightening. That's the only word I can think of. So in terms of how goblins work, they're fairly different. Cool. Alright, so what's the name of her if she's a half-orc? But she's a half-orc from a society where it's not like a hugely separated thing to be an orc or a human or a half-orc. What would her name be? They do have lots of, if we go based on Zeranog as a place, we've got kind of, oh no! Sorry, I forgot I still had the paint, and I don't have my, oh no! Sorry, give me a second. I took away my window that has undo on it. There we go. I'm hoping that you just can't see that on the stream. Yeah, great. Oh, awesome. It's like invisible for you guys. Dakota! Interested in Dakota. Yeah, those sort of Zs, Hs. Yeah, it's not quite soft sounds, but it's like heading in that direction. Brelenta. Don't mind that. No, a comet landed near Seagate, everyone's drowning. I don't mind Dakota. Zunhilda. Maybe a bit Arabic. That's a cool idea. I like that. Kothra is cool. Do you usually put dungeons in your cities or keep combat out of town? I think, I've never thought about it before, but I think I mostly keep combat out of town. That's interesting. Gonna have to mess that up a little bit. Interesting. Could that be the tension between the cities? One of the cities is more mixed racially than the other. It's possible, but I don't know. I kind of, because I talk about the importance of economics when I talked about world building and building a town and all those things. I did mention, economic as a thing is more important than people necessarily give it credit for. That's true of everywhere, but it's not the center of Brinolden. The thing in Brinolden is being close to the Faega, or the political thing later on, kind of the fact that the way that it's run and the military there has stagnated a little bit. It's those kinds of things. The stuff in the Jewel of the South that still doesn't have a name, that is kind of about the education, the university that's there, those things. There's like different focuses in those cities, whereas here I kind of think it'd be really cool. There's also places with military and blah blah blah, but it'd be cool if this one, the center was just economic. Like it didn't get into a super political space. It's just like, where's the money? Who has the money? Where's the money going? Where's the money coming from? Anxana, Daze, Isanti, Thrisha Dideric, Algra. Yeah, I'm still kind of caught on Dakota. I like the fact that it does sound like it's got that kind of that hard K sound that we associate with orcs in a lot of ways, but and amongst that, Mistress Z is cool. But in amongst that, it's also something that is almost mundane to our ears because we know about Dakota. Dakota is a place for us, so it kind of is a little bit of the best of both worlds, where it rings true as both almost exotic. Oh, I feel gross for having used that word to describe a half-orc. But also really like boring, run-of-the-mill, and something that we've heard before. Kind of like that. Take Dakota and change a single vowel. I am a fan of that, and it's very human, and she is half-orc. That's cool. Dakota. Anyway, something like Dakota. I like that. So that's cool. So she's a half-orc. She's on that side. Who is running the other side? I reckon she's running the place that is more innovative, that maybe has a sort of cooler process or a more efficient process or whatever's that. So then who's growing the grapes? Who's the head of that family? Are they old or young? Dakova is cool. Dakova. No one's talking to me. You imagine an elf with the grapes? Interesting. Yeah, Dakota Dideric. That's nice. A very old elf could be interesting. Yeah. Elijah, kind of, I mean, it's so boring, but I'm imagining a human personally. But there is something to be said for the fact that if we went for someone like an elf, or you know, a long-lived figure, a dwarf. Sorry, I just got very excited about the dwarf. If we did go for a longer-lived species, then there's a cool aspect where, you know, they can have been opposing the, you know, we'll go with the Dideric family, even though I'm not like set on it. But just for the sake of explanation, you know, if you have a half-orc or humans or whoever running this family, and then have someone long-lived on this side, then it's like them opposing like multiple generations of the other family, which is kind of a cool little dynamic there. Old gnome, a pear, vampire. I don't know, it's too sunny for a vampire. Also, there's a part of me that's not certain but thinks that the vampires may have taken a hold north of the Fayacre. There's this whole thing where you can't walk through the Fayacre because of this temporal fold, so you will never be able to travel north through the Fayacre. If you start on the northern end and walk through, then it's fine, because you'll never actually encounter the Fayacre, you'll just encounter the normal forest. So there's kind of a thing where, because of the mountains and because of the forest, people from this area don't generally get north. It doesn't happen, so they're kind of cut off from it, but there are people to the north of the forest, and the land does continue to the north of the forest, or, I mean, for a little bit, then there's ocean. I don't know, I kind of like the dwarf, and dwarves are so underused. I like the young and charismatic dwarf, but I don't think it works for this. If we're picking a long-lived race to oppose multiple generations, then it's a little bit less useful to do a... What if we go... If we're talking about Romeo and Juliet, a dwarf who's a little bit like the friar, maybe. I'm going with dwarf for now, which is weird because I never usually like to have two very exotic people as the major NPCs. I like sprinkling like liberal amounts of humans in there to prove that they exist, and just because I like them. But I kind of like the idea of a dwarf who's just super into growing wine. Yeah, it's a merchant dwarf, so it's got that kind of tropey background, but at the same time pulls it away from that very... It's still something that's earthy, if you know what I mean, but it's without being like tied up in caves and rocks and like, oh, I smash things. Even though I like that, that doesn't seem to be what dwarves are in my setting. I can't explain to you exactly what dwarves are in my setting. Maybe I should ask you all about that at some point, because this is the thing. This is what I like about this. It's a back and forth, and so it's just kind of all the best ideas and all of the things that click into place tend to happen in conversation with other people. And so this is kind of a cool way to do that. I probably will have to start wrapping up pretty soon because I have to go into town and buy those birthday presents for my sister. But yeah, short Klingons, exactly. Yeah, maybe. I'm not even saying what I'm maybe-ing to. Oh, names for the dwarf! I forgot about names for the dwarf. Dwarven language in my setting, just for the record, again, is kind of... None of these are actually true, but it's just like, what language did I pick kind of spellings from? And for dwarves, it's Slavic sort of sounds. Yeah, I think everyone who came to found the Twin Cities kind of came from the east. I think that's true of both cities. I think people were coming across the salt flats, they finally found this area, and they sort of populated a lot of this area. And these are the people who came furthest and kind of set up. I think there are people who are untouched by both sides of the conflict, but I don't know if they're immune to it. I think they're just flying under the radar or aren't important enough or aren't deemed important enough to be kind of the target. Jaromir! Ooh! Yes. Got to speak with a Russian accent in order to understand Hans Greipman. Jaromir. Jaromir! Also means spring. Gimden Stoneback. I don't know, I feel like rather than abandoning the sort of stone and mining thing, I think he's, I mean, okay, so the main sector of dwarves here, again, I keep forgetting to like just show you stuff, so let me find. So Thandor, again, is just like a regional area, but that's kind of the dwarven thing. So they're kind of hill dwarves, I guess. So they're not super tied up in the the Middle Earthian image of mountain mining dwarves. I know that you can mine in hills, but still, there's gold in them. They're hills. I feel like his family probably just have been in the plant growing area of interest for a long time. Do any of my players belong to a guild? No, they do not. Oh, actually, that might be a lie. That might be a lie. Guilds are a little more nebulous, I guess, for me. But the ranger, Kylerin, she's connected to an order of rangers who work out of Auden's Keep. I didn't call it Auden's Keep. I named it Auden's Keep before I started watching Matt's videos, and then he had Auden as his game world, and I was like, well, dang, we all just like the sound of that word. Amos, that's cool. Vlad. Vladin Switch. Las Vendrick. Uvenio, a Vinemaster. Again, I don't think he's a nature cleric, I don't think he's a druid, I don't think anything like that. I think he's just got a bit of a green thumb. I think he's just good with plants. I think he's good with business, but mostly good with plants. I think it's a matter of quality for him. I think he probably has that very dwarven thing of priding himself on the quality of his product. Dalrak Goldwheat. Evermead? Nice. Which one was the most fun to say? Vlad in Switch was the most fun to say. I like that one. We've got some people who need to leave. Well, goodbye. Enjoy your friend who demands your attention. Good, good. Go, be social. Live your life. I would think with the long-living race, he's probably very patient, which helps him with growing. I agree. I think that's a very, very good point. And so it's interesting as well, because if we're talking about, it's probably a family who cultivated their skills over a long time with plants that take a long time to grow. But then, like, once this thing of wine hits, which will have been a long time ago, don't get me wrong, it's not like a current thing in the world, but, once you get something like a vine plant, which grow very quickly, if you suddenly hit on this thing which you can produce very quickly, and which you're very good at, and which is very new and people love it, it's like, damn, like, that business would just explode in terms of... You just not have a literal green thumb, and I'll tell you why, because I watched Troll in Central Park as a child, and that makes me worried that somewhere out there is a different dwarf with a purple thumb who will turn him to stone. Yeah, patient, stubborn. I think there's a stubbornness. Ooh, I nearly fell off my perch. There's an inherent stubbornness that comes with being long-lived, but I think mostly patient. I think we have a tendency in our cultural consciousness when we look at races like dwarves in fantasy, and we just go, oh, of course they're stubborn because blah, blah, blah. But we don't look at the positive flip side of that, or we try to, but we don't focus on it. So I think having a character who's about patience would be very cool. Yeah, a patient winery owner has to suddenly keep up with the struggles of mass production for a growing market. That is the summary on the Netflix show about his business. Carolus Folger, exactly. What is a long time for a dwarf or an elf when compared to a human? Just really long. It's the same but longer. Here's a question. Here's an interesting thing. A little off topic, but interesting. So humans don't view things, what's the word? I don't have the right words. Laterally? Is that the right word? We like to think that we perceive things kind of in exactitude, but we don't. We have this kind of bend to it, like a fisheye to the way that we perceive things, and that's why the more of something there is, the less we can perceive the difference. So a great example of this is if you're holding two very small weights, one that is a teeny little bit heavier than the other, you can tell which one's heavier very easily. But if they're both quite heavy and one is a teeny bit heavier than the other, you can't tell the difference, even if it's the same amount that is different, right? And there's this thing where we show, it's proven to exist in all areas of human life. Like if we look at prison sentences, if someone is getting like 2 years compared to 1 year, we're like, oh, that's a huge difference. But if someone's getting like, I don't know, 32 years rather than 30 years, we go, that's not enough. And so we push it up higher. That's a thing that humans do, and it's kind of a problem in the way we perceive things, but it's tied to the fact that we have a very specific lifespan and we experience things in the way that we experience them. So it's that old school thing of, holidays always seemed longer when you were really little. Like you'd get a 2-week holiday off school and you'd be like, yeah, awesome, that's forever. But then you get to high school and you're like, this is not very long at all. Just because of how much we've experienced now. So then does that mean that would amp up that experience for someone who lives for like hundreds of years, or would that experience not exist for someone who lives for hundreds of years? That's my question. Goodbye, Kodich. Thank you for coming. It must be so late for some of you. Thank you for all coming. Oh, I like that, Gildane. The winery all comes from a singular plant, a la Idrisil. That's kind of cool. Like they keep, it's like the, what is it called? The mother dough, that home of yeast. Yep, that home of yeast. It has a name. It was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but they have like a thing that they keep hold of and they just keep using it forever to, like they could take cuttings and plant them, but it's all from the one master plant. Yeah, I think that's true. Legacy, one of those. One of his personal struggles could also be that the industry is picking up due to the modernized production needs from Derek and is moving too fast for his slow and methodical ways. I think that's true. I think that's very, very true. Boop-a-doop-boop-boo. What's Ruin? Ruin is a small fishing town that my cleric character's mother grew up in. So her background involved the Warsong Orc clan would come through and sort of set up shop near Ruin. And Ruin is famous for like this fish festival, this weird gross fish festival. But the orcs would set up there once a year and they'd kind of eat a bunch of the fish and whatever. The townspeople didn't like them, but his mother ends up falling in love with one of them. She has a child, there's this whole thing, the Warsong get chased out of town, the mother leaves, and the cleric grew up in Dindol, which is like a little farming estate that his grandparent owned, and there's a ghost that's like not important, but a fun little thing. And yeah, then went off and became a cleric. It's a whole thing, but that's what Ruin is. Captured dragon being used for dragon wine. One day we'll talk about dragons in my setting. The mother doe! Yay! Ah ha ha ha! Ah, yes, Kodyad saved me. One day we'll talk about dragons because my dragons, I like them to be individual. So for me, there is no, it's not, there are red dragons. It's, this is the ruby dragon. This is the dragon of the desert sky. This is the coral dragon, you know? And they're all individual, and they're all separate things. And one of the later plot hooks that will likely take hold, it may not. Here's the thing, you gotta come to terms with the fact that there will be things that you know that your players never discover. There will be things that your players never get interested in. You just save them, and one day they might become a thing. But there are things that I know about this world that the players may never. But one of those things is that something is werebacking the dragons. I don't know if anyone's seen Wereback, a dinosaur's story, but there's like a core thing where where there's a machine that gives these dinosaurs sentience and makes them nice, and then towards the end of the film, the bad guy uses a different machine to make them savage again. And they become like angry, beastly things. So something is doing that to the dragons in the setting. So they're all intelligent, and they're not all nice. Some of them are. Some of them are malicious. Some of them, like, they're not super common. They do their thing. They have their stuff. But something out there is making them slowly become savage again. Great movie, Wereback, a dinosaur story. It's actually a terrible, well, I don't want to say a terrible movie. It's just a nonsense movie. It makes no sense. It's like, well, let me tell you, it starts with a dinosaur playing golf and telling a bird why he shouldn't run away from home. Like, I mean, I love it, but also, what in hell was that movie? Yeah, you want a hot dog. I wish I could do that voice. Yeah, there are things I know that the players might never know, a constant DM mood. And then there's the curse, the ever-present curse of the DM, which is that you will always be a part of the game that you wish you could play in, but you'll always be the part that doesn't get to play in it. Because there's no way to play in your dream D&D game unless you're running it. That is just the saddest true fact there is. Yeah, I guess so. I haven't seen The Flash, so I kind of know what you're talking about, but yeah. Something's just taking these dragons that were intelligent and would make their own decision, whatever, and just driving them feral. So they become kind of like rabid dragons. So hey, we'll talk about that sometime. I'm probably going to sign off now. I feel like we did a bunch of good stuff. Hopefully you found it worthwhile. It was like unstructured, But I feel like we came up with stuff, and hopefully there were ideas that interested you. And we can do this again sometime if you would like to. Tell me if you think it was fun or useful or good or any of those things. My laptop is telling me it's about to die, so that's why I'm signing off right now. But yeah, this was good. What did people think? I just want like a final like roundup of like thoughts. Yeah, good night everyone, because for most of you it's super late. Hey! Oh, well, I'm glad people have ideas. Thank you for giving me ideas as well. I'm much happier with Derek as a place name than Tamron. Yay! Okay, great. This is good. This is good. Everyone get sleep, have fun, enjoy your D&D things. I would say email this to your grandma, but that feels wrong for a stream. It's like a long video. She probably doesn't want to watch it. So, I will wish you good night. Have the good times. I don't know where the off button is, so like, bear with me, but I am away. That's it. That's my new sign off. Oh no, I regret it already. Boop! Bye!